All right, it is time for the John Riggins Show, Tuesday, December 15th. It's been a sloppy week so far. We might get snow. We might get all kinds of a mess out there. We got John Riggins back from Kansas. Dexter Manley is here. In the first place Washington football team. Even after that mess in San Francisco, they're in first place. Here's Riggo.
Wait a second. Mess in San Francisco? You mean Arizona?
Arizona, the Arizona mess.
Okay.
Good call by you.
Me.
Steel trap is back. The steel trap is back, Dexter.
I'm happy he's back.
I am too, Dex. I am. I have to say this now, honestly. I spent 12 nights out there on the prairie, and it wasn't. I was anxious to come home, and it wasn't because I wanted to leave there. I was missing, my family, really. And actually, I was missing you guys. And plus, it was really getting difficult to do the show from out there and you guys here, and just wasn't feeling like I was part of it. So, guys, good to be here. Thank you.
Good to see you. And Dexter's glad that you did not get mauled by a bear for starters and any other wildlife.
I've got that one over at my house that to this day, I'm starting to, I feel a little guilty about it. It's a bear from Alaska that you've seen it, Dexter's mounted. I'm thinking, for Dexter's sake, I should have hauled it out to Kansas with me, and then taken a picture of it back in the bush, peering into my camp, and then said, "Dex, I was wrong. There actually are bears out here."
When I showed him that last year at your party,
right,
and took him downstairs,
right,
Dexter was shook.
Yeah,
and Dexter don't get shook easily, but Dexter was shook.
Let me say this now. I also have a wolf that is fully mounted, and that wolf's got a look on it, like when you look at it, and when I first got it, I'd forgot I had it. This is like 30, 40 years ago. And I remember I had a couple shooters, right? And I came in one night, I saw that wolf, and that wolf is just like an animal will do, is frozen, looking straight at me. And I got to tell you, for a second, I went, ba-bum. But then I realized, oh, wait a second, he's nothing to it. Then that leopard, that's mounted on like a ledge and you put it up on the wall, and then you walk, and the leopard's looking down at you. And that's another. I'm going to tell you something. No matter what your condition, you look at that leopard long enough, and you start getting the willies a little bit. It's true. But anyway, enough for the willies. I think a lot of people have got the willies, and they're good willies, right? About the way the football team's going. Dex, you called it again. I think I went the other way, didn't I? I think I went with the bookies, and they lost. They had me crowed. Now, there's a lot of stuff going on here, a lot of moving parts. Dex, you forgot your pom-poms, but I know it in spirit. You've got them with you.
In my heart.
Yeah, exactly. You've got the pom-poms of the heart. But, how do you analyze what has happened so far in the NFL? First, I think you got to start with the fact that it's a very unusual season. And to read too much into stuff is, I don't think you're going to get a lot out of this year because it is such a helter-skelter type of season. I mean, the fact that it's not an excuse. I mean, and I don't see it that way necessarily. But teams such as San Francisco, who normally play in Santa Clara, have had to pack it up, move over, and completely change the way they do things, living in a hotel, they're not at home. No matter what you say, it's got to be a little disconcerting. And I'm not making excuses for San Francisco because they're still they're a decent football team. They've been riddled with injuries, but there's a lot of teams around there.
Right.
Pittsburgh loses yesterday. Is that a big surprise? No, because after Washington beat them, I thought they're on their way down because they're probably the most fraudulent 11-0 team
exposed
ever to be in the NFL. They won games that they shouldn't have won early, so they have this big lofty record. Now they've been discovered for the frauds that they are, and they're not going to pay the price for it, but they'll probably still make the playoffs. But they ain't going to last long. I don't think that because that team's on the downslide. They're not going to go anywhere. So you look at this whole entire NFL and what everybody's going through, how they had to change games, playing on Wednesdays. It's upside down. But the bottom line on all this is, and there is some good things I think that are happening to a certain extent with the Washington football team. And that is they've stuck together, and what could be a debacle, they could easily have lost several more of these games. They find themselves in a very unlikely predicament. I don't say predicament, but an unlikely position where they're actually winning games now. What they won 4 in a row now?
4 in a row. 4 in a row.
And that's you don't anticipate that. Now they got they've got 3 more to go, and technically they could finish 9-7, right?
Right.
That could be their record.
Right.
So there was a lot of upside. And I'm thinking, Dex, if you and I were at the park right now, and we were out there, and of course, this would be our day off, but yesterday, they would have had the team meeting, and I got to tell you, I guarantee you, it was smiles all around out there. I mean,
yeah.
and that to me has as much to do, and you hear me say it all the time, about winning is anything, is the attitude and the outlook of the players. And the players, I think, are starting to look at themselves like, well, why not us? Unfortunately, we got to introduce a little bit of reality here, and they got no offense. Their offense, at least they had none on Sunday.
Right.
And, they haven't had, and the reason is they don't really have a quarterback. I think you have to understand that Alex Smith has had limitations. It's been a great story.
Yep.
And it's been, I don't see how, way back, 3 weeks ago when he had a 300-yard passing game, it was all of a sudden Alex Smith might be the quarterback of the future next year. I'm thinking, how can you think these thoughts, people? If this team is supposed to really go someplace, and he's not the quarterback with a potential defense that looks like they're good. They're good. They play spottily they've shown flashes of greatness. But they relax, and all of a sudden you can't. So they're inconsistent. Mm-hmm. So you look at them and they go, they may have the aptitude, the ability to actually become a great defense. They're not that yet. Nobody should kid themselves to think they are. And after you say that the offense is still lacking, and it is, they find themselves here at 5-7 and with a legitimate chance to win their division. And I'm thinking, I'll give you a clap on that.
Sure.
Good for you guys. But let's not. I don't think people should kid themselves into thinking with the 4 victories in a row that all of a sudden that really has a lot of weight attached to it. Because if you really want to start parsing things and I don't know, pulling things apart and really examining them, you'll find that they're not really resounding, overwhelming wins. They've beaten 3 teams with backup quarterbacks, Dallas twice and yesterday. The 49ers. And the 49ers quarterback, he's a guy that's very obvious. You see, he shows flashes of decency, like he could play. And then all of a sudden, he just
fall apart.
He unreels or unspools. And next thing you know, you don't know where the ball's going.
You saw a lot of Daniel Jones in him where flashes of, hey, okay, making the right plays. And then you'd see every once in a while that panic. And they're going, rookie mistake, young quarterback mistake.
And that's the best way to describe it, Todd. I think when a quarterback goes back, I've never played the position, so you have to get a real quarterback in there to tell you. But my guess is when things aren't the way they were supposed to be and the way they anticipated and what they saw and everybody's covered, and you do, and this is where Washington, you got to give them a pat on the back. They're developing a pass rush. It comes from everywhere. Mm-hmm. Jack Del Rio does a nice job of mixing up, the blitzes and all that stuff. So you have different people coming in there and making plays. So you have to look at, and you start with the fact there's all these first-round draft picks in there, and you're starting to see, there's the potential there but they've got to keep improving, and they seem to be doing that. But right now they're a lopsided football team, the way I see it, because they are. If the defense doesn't play well, they don't really have much of a chance to win a whole lot that I've seen so far. Could change. What do you think, Dex?
Well, John Riggins, I agree with you 100%. I think you're spot on. Only thing I'd probably question, I think they're on the trajectory of going to the NFC Championship game.
Now, where do you come up with that?
And he has been selling this for about a month. And so he's got his 4 in a row.
Right.
So the floor is all yours, Mr. Manley.
Well, there you go, Dex. The floor is yours. Go ahead.
I just feel that the defense is playing strong. Defense is playing good football at this time of year. They won 4 in a row. I think their confidence is coming up. I think the big part of their football team is Dustin Hopkins. Did I say that?
Kicker, yeah.
I mean, he kept them in the game and been keeping them in the game for some time.
He's big.
That's true.
Yeah. That's a big deal when you can kick 56-yard field goals and 48-yard field. So I just feel that they're on the right trend. I agree with you with this Alex Smith. I think he's playing well, but he's not the future.
No, I don't think so. And I don't know. I mean, Dwayne Haskins got in the game. He didn't really do anything, although people seem to think that he really. he had a solid game. I guess from some perspectives, considering where he's, where he was, where he sank to, and now coming back, he did okay.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. I don't myself though, Dex. Like I said, the inconsistency in the defense is the thing that give me a moment of pause, because they're not going to play backup quarterbacks once they get into the playoffs, assuming that they get into the playoffs. And that's where, unless they can keep it going on a continual basis. I mean, in all honesty, there was a very good chance that San Francisco gets back into that game late, and they would start having momentum. Washington was slowing down.
Yep.
They score that second touchdown, and all of a sudden, and they get the 2 points. Now that's a big if, I guess, but I never felt like, oh, this game's over with. I mean, I did early on, but then when they scored that second touchdown in the second half, I'm going, wait a second, there's a lot of time on the clock, and Smith is out of the game, so that means Haskins, and they're not gonna let Haskins do a whole lot. I thought to myself how silly it was when Haskins comes in the game to start the second half, and Washington has the ball, they receive the kickoff, that San Francisco, they're acting like Haskins is going to go deep on the first play. So and that Turner's going to say, no, you're going to hand the ball off for a while.
Yeah, a couple times.
Yeah,
right.
It's
Couple
like
times.
They're playing potential pass, and it's a run, guys. It's going to be. I mean, I'm thinking to myself, but you got to give. I don't know what his name is, but the San Francisco defensive coordinator.
Right. What they
That
call
guy,
it.
I think
The bald-headed dude?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he wears a mask so you can't see the foam, because I'm telling you,
He's rabid.
That's Mad Dog.
He's rabid. He's rabid, man.
Yeah.
He is ready to play ball. I'm looking at that guy. I'm going, that guy's scared. I'd rather be on the field than on the sidelines with him.
Yeah, well, you said something that you said something about their running. They have no running game since this Antonio Gibson out. That's really going to hurt them if. I keep saying they're going to go to the championship. If they can't get a running game going, it's not going to happen.
Well, yeah, exactly. I think that there's, like I said, the offense needs dramatic improvement in other words, all right, Dax, let's look at them. They're 5-7. All right, they're getting ready to play this week, the Seattle Seahawks. I don't know what their record is, but I imagine they've won close to 10 games. What are they, 9 and something?
Seattle's 9-4.
9-4. And they got beat a couple weeks ago by the New York Giants. So, they're. But at the same time, that's a team that probably were thinking they're a little bit better than they were. The Giants get on top of them. And Alex Jones, well, no, that's not true. What's his name? The kid that was here.
Colt McCoy.
He's the one that masterminded that victory. Yep. So, this is where finally, I think, assuming that Seattle's got, all their talent in place, you knock off Seattle.
Right.
I mean, you can say what you want, but last week, you're playing a team that's just been ravaged by injuries, and that is the 49ers, with some really key players, starting with our quarterback, for crying out loud.
It is remarkable. And we talked about San Francisco, and this was early in the season. You lose Bosa, you look George Kittle. They have 17 players that started or were the main backups that are out. Hey, that's the hand they're dealt. Happens every year.
Right.
But theirs is extraordinary. And they flashed the graphic yesterday. They lead the league by a lot for starting players and players lost that are on injured reserve.
Yeah, and I don't, so my point is that now they're getting, once again, it's always that deal, Dex, where, you're not making any noise, and all of a sudden you start making noise, and people start turn around and look at you, go, what the hell are you doing? And that's what they're doing now. And I say, well, this is where you really prove it if you've got it, is it's the stretch run here. You start with, I would think, a pretty formidable opponent in the Seahawks. You knock the Seahawks off. Now, let me tell you something.
Right.
I will tell you, I will start to say that they have made some significant shifts if they can beat the Seahawks, because I think that's a fairly decent football team. They were on fire at the beginning of the season, and they kind of cooled off a little bit, but still.
And they've got the weapons on offense.
Yeah.
They've got the weapons. And Dexter, the one thing relative to the defense, which I know is near and dear to your heart, and clearly the strength of this football team.
Right.
Glad to see them grow and get better. John, you've talked about linebacker play and how it's been lacking. You're now seeing that starting to pick up because the front guys are getting after it, and the linebackers are doing their job, and it leads to the secondary starting to be more active. But still, and there's a great stat that came out today, the difference between the first half of Washington football team defense versus the second half is a tale of two defenses.
Really?
They are so soft and give up.
In the first half?
Seattle, San Francisco went down the field, did their thing again.
I was getting ready to say.
How many games have they fallen behind and the defense is like asleep? Then they switch it. A switch goes off at halftime, and they start shutting folks down.
Yep.
Well, I was going to say, if I'm not mistaken, I think the stats at the end of the first quarter. I think San Francisco had 50 yards rushing at the
55.
At the end of the first quarter.
At the end of the first quarter.
Right, and then this is what I talk about, that inconsistency. Second half, they like you said, they're stoning San Francisco for the most part. And all of a sudden, San Francisco starts running the ball a little bit.
Right.
You know, they start coming, and that's what made the difference in San Francisco's ability to get that touchdown in the second half. I think was somehow the defense relaxed, and San Francisco took advantage of it. But then in the right moments, they held on and ended up getting the victory. There were a lot of guys that played well, and I think the main part is, as far as the defense goes, is. San Francisco, you got to be honest about this. For the most part, Washington was playing San Francisco's B team yesterday.
Yeah.
And the B team gave them all they wanted. So you can't get too giddy other than the reality of their record, and they're sitting in first place, and you kind of got to go, it's kind of, you almost can give it a smirk, actually. It's not like a really hearty, this feels so
I mean, talk about your ugly win, right?
Yeah.
I mean, when your offense doesn't score any points, and you put
14, you get basically 14 points off your defense.
You put up 23, so, hey, ugly wins better than the alternative, right?
And you know what? Because it buys you time. In other words, you get a victory. You don't have to pay the price with a loss. It buys you time to fix what needs to be fixing and improve and keep on going. And that's what I'll be looking for this week. They play San Francisco or Seattle. Let's see another step forward. Go ahead, Dex.
Okay. Well, I don't know when the last time these guys have won 4 straight games. I've been back here since 2004. That's over 16 years.
Been a while.
They haven't won 4 straight games. Now, when John and I played, we won a lot of 4 straight games.
Right.
But, John, we remember that a lot of people were showing up at Dulles Airport.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think you and I and Todd should show up when they go on the road, and win a game, we show up at the airport.
Hey, Dexter, you and I.
Yeah, but back in those days, go ahead, Todd.
You and I have a better chance of going hunting with him than we do a show. Listen, first off, you have to get at least to 500 before there's even any consideration of showing out at Redskin Park or at Dulles Airport.
I was going to say,
let's go to Dulles Airport. I'm going to go to
Dex. We show up at Dulles, we're going to get shot. You know that. I mean, hey, this is the day of terrorists and all that stuff. They ain't gonna, hey, I'm John Riggins and this is Dexter Manley. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, who are you guys really?
You're not TSA approved. You're not TSA.
Well, we go to Dulles and then we go to Redskin Park.
Listen, I know you want those halcyon glory days back. We all do, Dex. But let's tap the brakes. Let's tap the brakes. Let's say 1 week at a time. 1 game at a time. Now, we've been beating up on the NFC East, and not that we've been beating up on them because it's 100% deserved of just how awful. Do you realize in the last month, the last 4 weeks, the NFC East is 9-6 with a 600% winning percentage, the best in all of any NFL in the last month.
Yeah, Dallas and Philadelphia wins yesterday.
Yeah.
Now, they're without Breeze, which obviously is a huge part of New Orleans,
They had won
mojo.
9 in a row.
Without him.
Yeah,
he's been out that long.
Well, no, but they've won 9 in a row, and he's been out at least 2 or 3 weeks.
Oh, he's been out every bit of that.
Yeah.
Because, what's his name?
Taysom Hill.
But there was another. It was Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah.
So I don't know how they're switching back and forth.
Well, it's mainly Hill. It's mainly Hill.
Oh, it's mainly Hill.
But
Hill.
Listen, Jalen Hurts and the Eagles, Carson Wentz, that whole debacle. I mean,
he's out of there.
They beat the Saints, and I don't care. The Saints are pretty damn good. They're not outside of Breeze. They're healthy. So that was a shock that they got that win.
I agree with you 100%. They jumped out and they held on to it, and so I don't. And like you said, Dex, with Wentz, what's going to happen there? I mean, talk about how the fortune shifts so quickly in the NFL, and you usually don't see something like that. You go, what is this? His 4th, maybe 5th year. His first year at the end of it, he was starting to show some flashes. Then his second year, it was like going to be an MVP year, and he gets injured,
got hurt,
and Nick Foles leads him to a Super Bowl and wins the Super Bowl. And he's never caught on. He showed flashes of greatness, but like Washington's defense, inconsistency has haunted him, and it makes you wonder, because they talked about this early last year about how he took his receivers out for dinner, and they spent it was like a $20,000 dinner with all the cocktails and whatever in some restaurant, and of course he sprung for it. But you get the impression that he was doing a little PR work, that maybe he's not as popular on the team. I don't know.
Well, a couple of guys who basically anonymous sources leaked to the press and saying that he wasn't liked.
Yeah,
and so then some other players did put their name on it and say, nah, that's whoever's saying that is a bunch of nonsense. And typical in Philadelphia sports talk, if you can imagine. So they were saying like, do they like Carson or they don't like Carson? What they like is winning, okay?
Winning.
And he's not getting it done.
Right.
But I'll tell you this. So he's got this humongous deal of money that they're on the hook for.
Right.
It's Kirk Cousins type of money. And the similarities between him and Kirk Cousins, in my mind, and Cousins, yes, and their ability to ultimately win and win over the team and the locker room and get it done for the amount of money these guys are making.
Well, I think they're case studies, Todd. And then Dex, you and me should go, we should go, become students of the game.
Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Yes. How did they do it? They know what they're doing here. They know how to pull the hoax off. That is Butch Cassidy, or whatever, the Sting. They know how to get to somebody. Yeah,
They're going to ship that guy out during the draft.
Well, I don't know. It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting. I mean, that's a lot of money. So, that's guaranteed stuff there for the most part. So it's not that easy.
Okay.
Do you happen to have it in front of you, Todd? Because based on everything we're saying, let me think. Philly, only the Giants lost yesterday. So I would think Washington sits atop of the NFC East. But the landscape keeps shifting.
Here's the deal, Riggo. So Washington football team 6-7, won 4 in a row. The New York Football Giants had won 3 or 4 in a row. They're 5-8. They got blasted by Arizona, and they looked terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, for all
Jones
the
still wasn't
progress.
playing, right?
And Jones came back and he played. They actually threw Colt McCoy in the fourth quarter. I mean, it was the worst game I've seen them play this year. It was terrible. They had 159 total yards in the ball game. One dude, Hassan Reddick, for Dexter, you would have been licking your chops. This guy had 5 sacks.
Oh, yeah.
3 forced fumbles.
Oh, my
They
God.
had nothing for him. And so they got smashed. Dallas destroys Cincinnati.
Right.
Andy Dalton goes against his former team. They whip up on them.
But a lot of that was defense, I think.
And so the Cowboys are 4-9. And I've got the latest
They're
odds.
1 game back. Well, they're 2 games back of Washington, obviously.
So here, and then the Eagles are 4-8-1, as discussed. Now, here are the latest percentages from the nerds and the stats that run all the analytics. And they do these, they basically run everybody's schedule in the models 50,000 times. And right now, the Washington football team has a 63% chance
to win their division.
63% chance to make the playoffs, 63% chance to win the division. The football Giants, with that loss, it's 24%.
Wow.
Eagles, 12%. Dallas, 1%. So Dallas
basically out.
Yeah. Dallas would have to win all the way out, and a bunch of other stuff would have to happen here. So Washington football team really controls their own destiny. They cannot tie the Giants. If they tie the Giants, then they're out because the Giants whipped them twice.
Okay. Let me interrupt you right there.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Now let's just say Washington go in the next road game and they win. Can I get a commitment from you and John that we'll go to Dulles Airport and root those guys on? I'm willing to do it.
I am not. Because again, I can't reward 9-7, and
that's a winning season. That's a winning record.
Oh, you're saying if their last game of the season against Philadelphia, that's here, isn't it?
That's Philadelphia.
Oh, that's in Philadelphia.
That's in Philly.
We'd have to go to the train station because I think they take the train.
It's true.
We'd have to go downtown. I mean, that's cool.
But Dex, come on, man, those special moments.
They were special.
When the fans sent you off, when they welcomed you home.
Oh yeah.
Come on, man, that's big time. That's not for That's like, okay, you won the NFC East in the weakling division, and everybody gets a parking space out front. But I ain't greeting you at the airport.
Yeah, well, not only that, it's like you're kind of celebrating
mediocrity.
A step above. I mean, literally an increment above mediocrity, 9-7.
You don't think people are going to be showing up at the airport?
I don't know. That's a good question. I'm thinking you could be right, but I don't know about the airport. What are they going to do at the airport?
Well, like when we was playing, they would show up at Dulles Airport. They'd be on the runway.
Well, they couldn't have been out there on the tarmac.
Dexter,
where were they?
You had just won the Super Bowl.
No, they were at the park when we came back.
Line in Redskin Park when you guys would pull up in the bus.
I don't think they were at the airport, Dex. Even back then, I don't think they would have allowed people out at, out there on the tarmac.
Well, let's go to Redskin Park.
Those were air traffic controllers, Dexter.
I'm thinking. They got 10,000 people out there around those planes that just flew in, those charters. What's going on out there?
Yeah.
Call the militia. We have an uprising.
So they got the Seattle Seahawks, and their offense is the real deal here. And, that's the strength.
Who, Seattle?
Yeah, and that's been the strength of their
that's
team.
Great. I mean, I think that's a great opportunity. And once again, if you're out there, and even, Ron Rivera gets it, I mean, he's looking at this like serious opportunity. And, big picture of everything, when you think about it, he's done a pretty doggone good job, and you got to give him credit for that. Considering, I wasn't a big proponent of it, but he toughed it out through all that chemotherapy, and he stayed the course as, the skipper of the ship. He didn't hand anything off to Jack Del Rio. A little bit, I think's on him, but then who knows exactly how much autonomy he really does have, because he starts the season with Dwayne Haskins and he goes a couple games and realizes, I don't think that's going to get the job done right now, so now I'm going to have to go with Kyle Allen. Kyle Allen gets injured, so now all of a sudden he's back to where I didn't really want to be, but bringing Alex Smith. So they haven't really had, steady play at the quarterback position. And yes, I don't know if Alex Smith was going to figure it out in the second half or not, or whether the team was just going to remain touchdownless from the offensive side of the ball.
Didn't you think he was
he didn't play well.
Oddly
I didn't think so.
Off in his passing. I mean, he was wild and missing the guys by quite a bit. Even his short balls
and
were
then,
not crisp.
And he threw the interception as well, which, as soon as he lets the ball go and you see where the guy is, you're going, this guy's played too long to make that throw.
Right.
That is not the throw of a 15-year veteran. And another thing I will say this, and I told Lisa Marie, because she happened to be there as I'm watching the game, the very play right before the half that he throws the ball and then comes out and all of a sudden he's got a strained calf, you could see, and I thought right away there was something going on with the leg, because he looked awkward all of a sudden when he was trying to do something in the pocket there. And I told her, I said, he isn't quite right even yet. And I had never noticed it before, but now I realize that he actually had injured himself somehow.
And it is the leg.
But is it the calf muscle, or do they know?
Well, there's still, as of this taping, that's all we know, and there still isn't a timetable. But it is a calf, but nothing showed up on the MRI.
A strained calf, for what I understand.
Right.
So now here it gets an interesting place is now they obviously are going to have to bring a guy off the practice squad and potentially activate, because you can't go into the game on Sunday with just Dwayne Haskins. I mean, they only have two quarterbacks active, didn't they, yesterday?
Right. You're right.
But do they have a third one?
They have a third-string quarterback they bought in.
Yeah, but my point is, he's not on the active roster, is he?
Right. Probably practice squad.
Practice squad.
That's what I'm saying. They're going to have to activate somebody off the practice squad. Or not. Well, I don't know. How do you do that? Or
Logan Thomas,
I was getting ready to
ladies
say.
and gentlemen.
I was getting ready to say.
Logan, keep that right arm. Actually, just hand off.
I was getting ready to say, get Antonio Gibson. Antonio, that toe, it's going to be fine. Okay, get out there, kid. Show us what you got.
All right, Riggo, we'd be remiss. I've been wanting to ask Dexter, and I know you do too. The breakout game for Chase Young. What are your thoughts?
I thought it was phenomenal. That was his probably best game as a Redskin. Yesterday, he made plays. He was getting after the quarterback. I thought he just was phenomenal.
I would say this. I thought he finally lived up to his billing as the number 2, the second pick overall in the draft. That's what people have been waiting to see. I mean,
Correct.
Let's face it, it's always flashy when a defensive lineman scores a touchdown. That's always like, wow. But in all honesty, I mean, the kid's got talent. There is no doubt about that. And because he runs well. But in all honesty, Dex, if the ball's on the ground and he doesn't, I mean, he could have fallen on the ball, which a lot of times they say, hey, defensive linemen, you're not running backs, just fall on the football.
Right.
Then he's an exception. But, you would go, well, if he doesn't pick it up and run, I'm thinking to myself, then why did you draft him? I mean, in other words, he made a play that's obvious, and then it becomes, what do you call it, negligence if he doesn't. So I don't know how he gets, it was unbelievable. He tips a pass. I mean, okay. I mean, to me, it's like, I guess what it is because he's Chase Young, his brand is already really strong.
He's a made guy.
Yeah, you make a play or two, and all of a sudden it gets stronger. Because basically, the guy on the other side of the ball he's been actually playing around Chase Young.
Montez Sweat.
Montez Sweat,
I think.
Okay, now Montez Sweat was supposed to be Chase Youngish Last year.
Well, maybe that's a delayed reaction here. Maybe Chase will take it to a new level. I don't know. But I will say this, and this is true. I think you have to. I mean, I honestly believe that between the two of them, they really form. I mean, I don't think Washington has had these kind of defensive ends since this guy over here and his running mate Charles Mann played for Washington.
Great analogy.
I think these two are
John,
like the
you're
second coming of
sharp.
Mann and Manley, huh?
You're real sharp.
Well, they ain't as good as
I
you
gotta
guys.
tell you,
but
he's
they-
energized.
Yeah.
But you notice?
That's that hunt
Kansas,
trip.
that Kansas
Dax,
trip.
They ain't even close to where you guys eventually got to, but
yeah.
they're on the path to get there. Let me just say that. They got a long way to go.
The great label of potential.
Yeah, exactly. I think,
great-
and I think that and I can see where people can the what do you call it, the euphoria and the enthusiasm that people are feeling right now. I can see it because of guys like that. Because you see, the potential that's there, and you got Allen and Payne that's anchoring the middle of the line. These guys are real football players. It's just like I said. That defense, and Jack Del Rio knows this. He knows, and I don't know if he knows that he's got the talent everywhere he needs it, but he knows that he's just like a step and a half, 2 steps, whatever it is, away from that becoming a defense that people are going, we don't want to play Washington. Because guess what? Your defense better plan on scoring some points because your offense isn't going to.
Well, like you said, you got the 5 number 1, so clearly, strategically, that's where you put all your money. And you put all your picks in, and so it's neat to see it start to gel together. Mm-hmm. The one thing, John, and you said this before, and when you saw the Bosa brothers play separately in games last year, and the motor of these guys, they come in, and that's the thing to me about Chase Young is
he has a motor,
a running play, and his ability if a quarterback scrambling out of the pocket. I mean, he was the one guy that you see come flying around the ball. And Dexter, that's what you did. Everybody got the fans and everybody pumped out was the wheels. And
and the thing here that I'm curious to see is if a running back breaks free, if Chase Young just pulls up and starts pacing him down the sideline, when it's all of a sudden he goes, oh shit, I'm supposed to tackle this guy.
Who was that, Tony Dorsett?
No, Herschel Walker.
Oh, Herschel Walker.
Dex got into a foot race with Herschel Walker. He forgot all about the fact he had the football.
He said, hey, man. Hey, good to see you, Dex.
Oh, that was priceless. I wasn't playing,
of course.
but yeah, that
was a great story. But so your final thoughts on the defense and what they did against San Francisco. What do you expect against Seattle?
Well, they're going to button this chin strap up because this Metcalf guy, he's going to outrun the coverage, and it's going to depend on that front 7 to get to the quarterback. I think when if the defense can get to the quarterback, that's who wins the football game the most.
Agreed.
Yeah, and so I would say that I haven't watched Seattle play, but I've heard a lot about this Metcalf.
Well, Russell Wilson may be the most elusive quarterback, the slipperiest.
That's what I'm thinking.
More so the guy in Arizona, Phoenix.
I'd say yes because he's more experienced, and he'll beat you out of the pocket. Kyler Murray's been up and down this year. For as good as he is, Russell Wilson's in the MVP discussion.
I think, what I would say, Dax, is that, in my opinion, Russell Wilson, it represents a guy who is great at making something happen.
Yes.
When scrambling and finding an open receiver. Kyler Murray is a guy who actually, when he can't find a receiver, is going to hurt you run the ball down the field. He's going to cross the line of scrimmage and gain yards. I think that, to me, is the difference. And the difference there is because Kyler Murray hadn't played long enough to be at the other level. But you see, for me, I don't know, were you done as far as your observation with, what the defense has to do?
I want to hear your observation.
Well,
you the pro.
Here's where the key is to me. What did he say?
He said, you're the pro.
You're the pro.
A semi-pro. Just like I'm semi-tough. I was going to say that this is where the test really comes in for the defense, because now you're going to face a quarterback. There were moments yesterday, or not yesterday, but on Sunday. There were moments on Sunday where, what was his name? Nick
Mullins.
You could see where you put a different quarterback in where he was. In other words, if you can, name the scrambling quarterback you want to, that quarterback very well could have gotten out of some stuff and found somebody.
Correct.
He basically had blinders
He
on.
did not look comfortable.
He didn't know where to go.
They had tunnel vision.
When he had
Yeah.
to scramble, there was no telling what was going to happen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking that this will be a great test for the defense if they can get Russell Wilson on the ground a couple, 3 times.
Yes.
That and keep him from, when it looks like they've got everything contained, keep him from getting outside of the pocket or whatever it is and making a play.
Getting outside
That's going to
them
be the
tackles.
difference. And that's the next step the defense has to take. They have to be able, and I'm not saying they can't do it, but I don't think I've seen, they haven't either played the guy or they haven't been able to do it. But to play the quarterback that's that accomplished, that when he does that they can still contain the play. The DBs, they do what they got to do. The pass rush comes around and gets the guy, whatever it is, or force him to throw it out of bounds.
That's a home game.
It is a home game.
It is a home game, and with 3 games remaining, the last 2 being against Carolina and Philadelphia that have losing records. So if they can take this game, and we'll get into it deeper on Friday.
It's huge.
So what do you think the opening line is?
Well, based on what we've seen, I would say it's going to be, I would guess, maybe Seattle -3.
Okay, I don't really care about the
spread.
spread or the line.
What I care about, that let's 3 of us go out to the game. They'll let us
don't
in.
allow fans, otherwise
they will let us
allow
in.
you guys.
We the media. They'll let John Riggins
They
in.
don't even
They'll
allow
let
the media now.
They will let John Riggins in
And Dexter Manley.
and Todd Castleberry.
And I'll
Let's
be in the
go
car
to the game.
keeping it warm.
Why don't you go to the game
And report back?
Exactly. I'll be on the phone. You can do, what do you call that? You can FaceTime me from the game.
I
Dex.
really want to see the Seattle and the the Washington football team
It could
play.
be kinda
I'd
cold,
rather be
too.
on my couch watching it very
Right.
comfortably. I think it's supposed to be like a -10 on Sunday.
Well, I
That's
think I
fair
want to stay home too.
Well,
I don't know about that, Dex.
all right, speaking of cold weather and stuff heading our way potentially, Riggo, let's get the recap, the rundown, the finale
Okay.
off the Kansas
The
sojourn.
last night I was there, Dex, I went out and I tried to get the emotional preparation that we talked about. I looked at the sky. Now, the sky is timeless, let's face it. You looked up it as a kid. Now, you grew up in the hood, so maybe you never saw the stars because, honestly, the lights of the city, they light them out. When I used to live in New York City, even here, it's hard to, but out there on the prairie, man, it was just like me and the stars. And the moon, which was almost full when I got there, by the time I left, it was waning, and it was almost now, a new moon had come up. But it didn't quite get there. But the point I'm making is, here I am. I look up, and that's where you realize, old, you say, well, he's 71 years old, but you realize you're not old. You're not old when you look up those stars. And you realize those are that's the same heavens that you looked up at when you were a kid, and you go, it didn't change. A lot of everything else has changed, but that never does. So it gives you that perspective. And as I was there, and I started to realize, and on the drive home, once again, 18 straight with no, I did it a cappella, Todd. It was easier the second time than it was the first time.
And no shower.
And no shower. Just me, my stinky old self. Smelled like I had 5 boxers in there, and they just got done with a heavy workout. It was not pretty. I did have to crack the window every once in a while. But anyway, so Dex, I'm out there. And I counted up 12 nights on the prairie I spent. And like I said, I came home not because I was uncomfortable in any way and going, wow, this ain't getting it done. I'm dying out here. It was because I missed everybody and I wanted to be home with my family because I could just easily be out there. But I realized 12 days, right? 12 days and nights. You realize I pulled about a quarter of what Jesus pulled, right? He pulled 40 days and 40 nights. I pulled 12. If I do the other 28, here's what I'm thinking, see? Then I would have the power. It would be where I'd throw down my gun, I'd call him my pa, and he'd call me his son. Basically, it would be the second coming. I would be boss of the world if I'd only stayed another 28 days. But obviously, I had to pull out early.
Now,
He was all alone, man. He had a lot of time to think and come up with this stuff.
And the 18 hours on the way home didn't hurt either.
yeah, but you looked at the stars and you out there where you grew up.
Yeah.
You had no tears.
No, but I came close. I did come close.
What's close?
Well,
what does that
when
look
you get
like?
that little knot in your throat. I was getting there.
Was that when you missed?
But that would probably be when I missed
Now, this
chongo.
serious talk, Todd. This
No.
serious talk.
Yeah, no, I'm telling you, Dex, it was, I didn't get quite there all the way. I just was close. It's kind of interesting, though.
How do you cut it off when how do you cut
Because I'm thinking that I'm looking at myself. That's the other thing. When you're out there, now this is serious, that you have an ability, I think one has an ability to, you kind of start to get outside of yourself.
Okay.
And you can start looking back at who you are. And it's kind of weird when you get in. They say Abraham Lincoln could do that he would be able to look at himself and what he was going, like if you start looking at yourself in the third person. And, when you do that, the first thing that happens is you realize you're not as special as you thought you were. And that's a good thing. Humility is a great thing, actually, and I don't think there's enough of it. And the other thing is, and I think it was Socrates, of course, this is what Plato said. I've read this recently, is that Socrates, was the smartest man in Greece at one time. But there were a lot of other people who thought that they were really smart. And Socrates became the smartest because he basically said, I know that I know nothing. And that's kind of where you get to when you really, all this stuff, and you're trying to, and basically it goes back to Shakespeare, and the world is a stage, and we are all but actors. A lot of truth in that. And that's what I'm saying, is you start to try and weed out the stuff that's important, that's really important, and so much of the rest of the stuff really isn't. And I think for anybody, solitude on that level, being out by yourself, self-reliant, self-sufficient, and having time to have your own thoughts to yourself. Not everybody's going to come away with the same thing. Some people's going to be on, man, this is killing me. It's cold out here. Goddamn bugs. And then, it's like,
Dexter, that's when we cry.
And bears, and I'm thinking about bears that don't exist. Yeah, but there's other people, and I guess I'm one of them, that actually I really relish the thought. This was the best trip I've ever had out there, and all across the board. And now that factors in the fact that I didn't even get a whiff of chongo. He never, he did not even.
Did you fire your gun at an animal?
No, but you'll get a kick out of this. I did. What I did was I finally wanted to see what my gun was doing, so I took it down. I've got a little bottom ground there. It's about 10 acres, and it's probably about 300-400 yards long, and it's flat. So, I got some fence posts here, and I'll drive them in the ground, a little, what do you call it, for electrical fence, easy to push into the ground, stapled some targets on them, and I got back, and I got my truck, and I buzzed off a quarter of a mile, or a tenth of a mile, right, because it goes, 176 yards, and I stepped off another 200 yards, see what I was doing. So the one gun was a .264 Winchester Magnum. It's got a little zip to it. It's a fast bullet, not particularly heavy. And the other gun was that .338 I told you about. That's a big popular round up in Alaska for bear hunters, and it too is a Winchester Magnum. So I'm out there now. You got to appreciate. I told you it was really warm weather, and so I'm out there, and all I've got basically on is a what do you call it? A tank top. That's a muscle shirt, and that's it. Because it was so warm. I mean, it was inclemently warm. It was like.
Wow.
For hunting, it wasn't good. If you'd got an animal down, you had flies and all that stuff. It was like, well, this is December in Kansas, and I got flies buzzing around. Of course, that might have been me. I don't know. But my point is, so what I do is I'd shoot a round out of the 264. And then I would shoot around out of .338, and I'd just go back and forth. I was going to do, groups of threes to see where the bullet is striking on the target. And, in other words, wherever the group is, if you get, the idea is to shoot, it isn't necessarily to hit the bullseye. Ultimately, that's the goal. But what you want to do is get your gun to group. So if you shoot, if you're shooting a tight group, then all you have to do is move your scope up to where that same tight group will be hitting where the bullseye is, depending on where you want to zero your gun at 100 yards, 200 yards, 300, whatever it may be. And that's what I was trying to do at 200 yards. So and then you don't want your gun barrel to get too hot, because that'll change your grouping. If the barrel gets hot, then the bullet starts moving around. So therefore, I would shoot one gun, put it down, and let it rest, take the other gun, line it up, and shoot it, and put it down, and I did that back and forth 3 times. I go down and look at my targets, and I see that the one gun is shooting, the .264, nice group, 250 yards, low and to the right. So I made an adjustment. And I looked at the other target, and the .338 was basically the same deal, but wasn't quite as tight a group. So I made a little bit more of an adjustment, and I made the wrong adjustment because I thought about it, and then at 100 yards, you basically, every time you click on your scope, it moves your bullet a quarter of an inch one way or the other, whether it's left or the right, or up and down a quarter of an inch. And of course, at 100 yards, if you moved it 4 clicks, that'd be 1 inch. Well, at 200 yards, because you're at the center of the circle, it's going to move it probably 3-4 inches. I don't know. So I didn't factor that in. So anyway, I get out there. So the second round of shooting, I shoot the 264. And now remember, I've already fired 3 rounds, 6 rounds total, but the 3 with the 338 were not fun. I mean, the shoulder's going.
Do you think that 358 will hurt me?
Oh, yes, it will hurt you. It will hurt
Dexter,
you.
you're a bad man.
If you go bare-shouldered on it, Dex, you'll be going, I've had enough. The deal, that's what I'd do if I had if I had a combine, I would go and say, bench press 225 pounds? No, we're not going to do that. What we're going to do is I got a 378, I got a 370 or a 375 H&H Max. Well, let's just make this a 500 Nitro Express, okay? So I want to see how many times you can shoot this gun in a row on your bare shoulder. That's the
Really?
test of a tough guy. You ought to see the black and blue mark I've got on my shoulder here. It starts up here and it goes all the way down to there. Where this eventually goes is, so I get back to my second round of 3 on the 338, and I fire one time, and I'm going, I'm done. I couldn't do anymore, Dex. It was like I was getting to the point where, when people, if you got too much gun, a lot of times guys will flinch because they know that they're going to get the hell kicked out of them by the gun. Yeah. And I was getting to the point, I know, if I fire another round, it's stupid because I'm going to flinch. I know I'm going to flinch. I couldn't do it anymore.
I got a question. And now,
sure.
You seen Fast Boys, Fast Boys? That's the cop show?
Bad boys,
Bad
bad
boys,
boys,
bad
bad
boys.
boys.
Bad Boys, Bad Boys.
Yeah. What you going to do? What you going to do?
There
I'll
you
come
go.
for you.
Cops. There you go. Yeah.
The old show Cops.
Yeah, old show Cops. Why would you wear a wife beater out there?
That's a good question. I think what I was doing, I was hoping Chongo would see me and he'd see me walking around down in that bar and going like, come on, Chongo, let's see what you got. Come on down here.
Is that guy that comes out here once a year?
Exactly. That bozo that calls himself a hunter? What a nincompoop. Isn't he a safety numbskull? Isn't that the same guy?
Oh, Dexter, we've lost Mr. Manley. All right, well, it's great to hear you got your mind right, your head clear. Good time was had. Nobody got hurt. We didn't get any venison. So Dexter, maybe he'll take you. I'm sure
I think we can go to
around.
McLean. They had a grocery store over there. I think we go to McLean and buy some venison. Like I said,
Is that deer meat venison?
Yeah,
Yes.
it's pen raised, but it's still deer meat. I mean,
Is
if
it
you're
like
interested,
link
we can-
sausage?
No, it's just actually, I don't know whether it's, tenderloin or if it's a different cut of the deer. But I was over there, it's been a while now, but I noticed in their, their meat case, they had venison over there. They had a lot of stuff. I think they had quail.
A lot of
even.
exotic.
Pheasant, quail. Yeah, they had a lot of stuff you'd never expect. You don't see in the average, I would tell you the name of the store, but.
Especially in the
They're not
mean
paying
streets
us
of
anything.
McLean.
They're not paying us anything.
Do you
I
like
can't give a
wildlife?
No,
What's that?
I don't like wild gamey. It's too gamey for me.
You know
I'm not a
what?
fan.
That is so. How
Well,
do you know?
it's mine.
How much have you eaten?
Venison
One time.
and never again.
Who made it?
Well, that's another story. There were some relatives that made it.
And where were you?
I was in Michigan, and they were big hunters, and chomping in, I'm like, wow, it's actually kind of hairy. And I didn't know. I thought it was a hamburger. They're like,
That's
hey,
what it
Tom,
was?
how do you like the venison? Whoa! Oh yeah, this is no. It was not a pleasant experience. I like buffalo.
Okay.
You do.
I get buffalo steaks. Ted's
I'm
Fullerton
thinking.
or
Yeah.
I'm thinking though. There's no. I guarantee you would like it.
A blind taste
you
test?
would too. Yeah, you would. If you didn't know what you was eating, you'd
Okay.
go crazy. Because when I was doing that outdoor show, I remember one time I came home with an antelope. Basically, antelope, venison, elk. I mean, it's all in the same ballpark. And there were people that was like, and I said, well, and I got hamburgers, for people who don't want it. And guess what? All the antelope was gone. As soon as somebody tasted it, hey, what do you got to try the antelope? You got to try the antelope. And let me tell you, honestly, it's how you cook it. When I was doing that show, Canada goose, which is a huge thing down on the Eastern Shore, right? Goose hunting is huge in Maryland. And for years, I'd try to make, goose, and it was like, it tastes like liver. I don't like liver. And it would be tough, because most tendencies is to overcook everything. And the truth of the matter is a lot of that stuff should be done medium rare, or even rare, and waterfowl in particular. More on the rare side with a nice sauce. I'm going to tell you something. You'd be surprised. You're actually thinking sometimes you're actually eating steak. It's true. I've got deer in my backyard, and I think I have permission to dispatch one or two. I'm going to go see what the hunting season is in Maryland. But I have.
You started.
I can't touch off of that 338 in my backyard. That's
we
true.
got him off at his jag, and look what you started eating. Dexter wants his venison.
Well, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm going, you know what? I wouldn't mind a little myself. I'm thinking and I got my climbing stand out there. I think I'm going to go back into the woods in my backyard. And then if I what if I kill chongo in my backyard? I'll feel like the biggest idiot there ever was.
I got one question.
Sure.
Is alligator
That's good eating.
considered wildlife?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I had alligator. Remember we played the
Tampa?
The Super Bowl in Tampa. I would have had alligator at a restaurant in Tampa.
Yeah. No. It's
Yeah.
you know, I mean, you got to figure frog legs and all. I mean, it's all in your mind. I'll tell you that right now,
no
for the most part.
question.
Although there are, I mean, when I say that, I know it's in my mind because if somebody says, "Hey, I got some Siamese cat here. You want to give it a try?" I'd have to go. I don't think so. I have one for a pet.
Well, I
just think
believe
of
it was the
horse
EU
meat?
last week because bugs are now
In vogue?
and
For culinary purposes?
Yes, and
What, like
count
grasshoppers
me
and-
crickets.
Crickets are big. You can buy crickets now,
Yes.
like chips.
Yes.
And you eat. They're salted and all that stuff.
How you feel about that, Dexter? Little crickets, worms.
Right. No, I mean, and there's a lot of protein in those. And you know what? There's so much protein in that. I'm going to go home and have some. So guess what? It's Riggo, and I'm
Okay.